Part 1. Captain Daniel Harris stood in front of the massive window on the space station. Below him, Earth looked peaceful and blue. But Daniel knew that peace was about to cost humanity everything they had fought for. The meeting room behind him was filled with alien representatives. The Valkyrie ambassador looked like a walking crystal, her body reflecting light in strange patterns. Next to her sat the Therian delegate, a creature with 6 eyes that blinked one after another. There were others too, all members of the Galactic Council, and all of them were angry with humanity. Daniel turned around and walked back to the table. His uniform felt heavy on his shoulders. Lieutenant Sophie Martinez stood beside him holding a data pad. She looked worried, and she had every right to be. The Valkyrie ambassador spoke first. Her voice came through a translator device, making it sound cold and mechanical. Captain Harris, humanity has become a problem. Your species won the war against the Kryn Horde, yes. But the way you fought scared everyone. You are too violent, too dangerous, too unpredictable, Daniel wanted to argue. Humanity had saved half the galaxy when they stopped the Kryn invasion. They had lost millions of people in that war. But he kept quiet and listened. The Therian delegate continued. The Galactic Council has made a decision. Humanity will be restricted. You may keep small defense platforms around your planets. You may keep patrol ships inside your home system, but nothing more. Sophie handed Daniel the datapad. He read through the treaty terms, and each line made his chest feel tighter. No warships over 10,000 tons. No weapons that could attack planets. No military operations outside the Sol system. Humanity was being caged. What about our merchant ships? Daniel asked. It was the only question that mattered now. The Valkyrie ambassador's crystal body shimmered. Civilian ships are allowed. They can be any size as long as they carry no military weapons. They will be inspected regularly to make sure you follow the rules. Daniel looked at the treaty one more time. He thought about refusing. He thought about fighting. But Earth's fleet was still weak from the war. The Council had made it clear that if humanity refused, they would face worse consequences. Maybe even destruction. He picked up the electronic pen and signed the treaty. The aliens watched him do it, and Daniel could feel their satisfaction. They thought they had won. They thought they had tamed humanity. Sophie stayed quiet until they were alone in the transport ship heading back to Earth. Sir, this treaty destroys everything we built. Our fleet, our defenses, everything. Daniel looked out the window at the stars. Maybe. Or maybe we just need to think differently. Back on Earth, Fleet Admiral Lucas Bennett sat in his office in Geneva. The room was simple, with gray walls and a large desk covered in holographic displays. Lucas was an old man now, with gray hair and a face full of wrinkles. He had fought in 3 wars and led humanity's navy for 20 years. His assistant, Commander Helen Price, stood at attention while Lucas read the signed treaty. He read it slowly, carefully, like he was looking for something specific. Sir, Helen finally said, what are we going to do? Lucas leaned back in his chair. Get me Director Patricia Cole from the Civilian Shipwrights Guild, and someone important from the Mining Consortium. Tell them I want to talk about expanding our civilian industries. Helen's eyes went wide. She understood immediately. Sir, the Council will be watching. They'll look for any sign we're building military ships. I know, Lucas said with a small smile. That's exactly why we won't build any military ships at all. We're going to build something else entirely. Over the next few weeks, Lucas had many quiet meetings. He met with mining companies, shipping corporations, and construction firms. He never met with military contractors. He never talked about weapons or warships. He only talked about business and industry. Patricia Cole was a smart woman who ran the largest civilian shipyard in human space. She sat across from Lucas in a private room and listened to his ideas. The treaty bans warships, Lucas explained, but it says nothing about cargo ships, nothing about mining vessels, nothing about industrial equipment, Patricia smiled. And industrial equipment can be very powerful. A mining laser strong enough to cut through asteroids could cut through a lot of things. Exactly, Lucas said. And a cargo ship needs to be big and strong to carry heavy loads across long distances. It needs powerful engines, strong armor to protect against space debris, and good sensors to navigate safely. Those same features would make a very tough ship in a fight, Patricia added. Lucas nodded. The treaty bans weapons. But tools aren't weapons. A mass driver that launches cargo containers isn't a weapon. A laser that cuts rocks isn't a weapon. Armor plating that protects workers isn't military equipment. But all of those things could be used in combat if necessary, Patricia said. If necessary, Lucas agreed. But that's not why we're building them. We're building them for legitimate civilian purposes: mining, shipping, construction. The fact that they might have other uses is just coincidence. Patricia leaned forward. This is going to take a lot of money, a lot of resources. Humanity just lost the right to defend itself with a proper military, Lucas said quietly. Do you think people won't support an alternative? We'll call it economic expansion, job creation, developing our industrial base. And it will be all those things. It just happens to also be something more. The plan began to take shape. Humanity would build the largest civilian fleet in the galaxy. Every ship would have a real civilian purpose. But every ship would also be designed with dual-use technology. Equipment that could serve both peaceful and military functions. The council inspectors would find nothing illegal, because nothing would be illegal. Humanity would follow every single rule in the treaty. They just wouldn't follow the spirit of those rules. Lucas sent out orders quietly. Expand the mining operations in the asteroid belt. Build more cargo haulers. Establish processing stations throughout the solar system. Train more civilian crews. Develop better industrial tools. To anyone watching, it looked like humanity was accepting their new role. They were focusing on business instead of war. They were becoming merchants and miners instead of soldiers. But Lucas knew better. He was building an arsenal that didn't look like an arsenal. He was creating a military force that didn't look like a military force. And he was doing it all legally, right under the council's nose. Helen came to his office one evening, months after the treaty was signed. Sir, the first new cargo hauler is almost complete. It's 50,000 tons, 5 times bigger than any warship we're allowed to build. Good, Lucas said.
How many mass driver tubes for cargo launching?
12, sir. Each one can accelerate a 5-ton container to very high speeds. Lucas smiled. A 5-ton projectile moving at high speed was a devastating weapon. But it was just a cargo launching system, completely legal. How long until we have a full fleet? He asked. At current production rates, maybe 5 years to have significant numbers, 10 years to really be everywhere. Then we'd better get started, Lucas said, because sooner or later something bad is going to happen out there. And when it does, humanity needs to be ready. Treaty or no treaty. The work began in earnest and humanity started building its future. Part 2, 3 years had passed since humanity signed the treaty. The Galactic Council had mostly forgotten about Earth and its people. The inspectors came regularly and found nothing wrong. Humanity was following all the rules. Their patrol ships stayed in the Sol system. They had no heavy warships. Everything seemed normal. But something was happening that the Council didn't fully understand. Human industry was exploding. Engineer Kevin Phillips stood in the massive construction bay orbiting Mars. The Tyson Yards had become the biggest civilian shipyard in human space. Above him floated a ship so large it made Kevin feel tiny. The SS Titan's fortune was 50,000 tons of steel and composite armor. It was a cargo hauler, designed to carry supplies between planets and star systems. The reactor installation is finished, said Chief Engineer Lisa Morgan. She climbed down from the inspection platform, wiping grease from her hands. Triple fusion cores, just like the colony ships use. Completely civilian-grade power systems. The council inspectors approved the design last month. Kevin checked his tablet computer. What about the cargo launching system? Lisa grinned. Mass driver tubes installed and tested. We have 12 of them. Each tube can shoot a 5-ton cargo pod at 0.03 light speed. That's fast enough to deliver mining containers to the processing stations in the outer system. Kevin nodded, but both of them knew what else those tubes could do. A 5-ton chunk of metal moving at 3% of light speed would hit like a bomb. A really big bomb. But they were just cargo launchers. Perfectly legal civilian equipment. How soon until we launch? Kevin asked. 2 weeks, Lisa said. Then we start on the next one. We have orders for 40 more ships this size. Across the solar system, more construction was happening. On Luna, the mining guild had built new headquarters in a crater near the South Pole. Director Patricia Cole stood in the control room, watching holographic displays that showed mining operations throughout the asteroid belt. A man in an expensive suit sat across from her. Fleet Admiral Lucas Bennett had officially retired from the military, but everyone knew he still had influence. Now he worked as a civilian consultant, which meant he could talk to people like Patricia without raising suspicion. The mining output has tripled, Patricia said, pulling up charts and graphs. We're extracting platinum, iridium, titanium, and rare elements at rates nobody thought possible 3 years ago. All civilian operations? Lucas asked. Completely civilian, Patricia confirmed. Though I should mention our mining ships have very good equipment now. The latest cutting lasers can slice through solid rock like butter. They can cut asteroids into pieces from 500 meters away. She didn't need to say that those same lasers could cut through ship armor. Lucas understood perfectly. Tell me about the processing stations, he said. Patricia changed the holographic display. Small dots appeared throughout the solar system, each one representing a station. We have 47 refineries now. They process raw ore into pure metals. Each station is built tough because space is dangerous. Thick armor against radiation, redundant power systems, independent life support. They can survive meteor impacts, solar flares, almost anything. Almost anything, Lucas repeated with a slight smile. Both of them knew the stations were built using old military fortress designs. They just happened to be processing ore instead of housing weapons. The council inspectors did notice the industrial boom. Commander Vrel of the Valkyrie arrived at Tyson Yard 6 months after the Titan's Fortune launched. Kevin met the crystal-bodied alien at the docking port. I am here for routine inspection, Vrel announced. The council wants to ensure treaty compliance. Of course, Kevin said politely. We have nothing to hide. This is a civilian operation building civilian ships. Vrel spent 2 days examining everything. The inspector looked at the reactor cores, the hull plating, the cargo systems, and the crew quarters. Kevin showed Vrel every system on the ship. What is this? Vrel asked, pointing at the mass driver tubes. Cargo launchers, Kevin explained. We load shipping containers here, and the mass driver accelerates them to high speed. It's much more efficient than using shuttlecraft for every delivery. And this laser array? Maintenance tools. We use them to cut hull plating when we need to make repairs. Also useful for clearing space debris that might damage the ship. Vrel checked each system against the treaty requirements. The inspector found nothing illegal. Every piece of equipment had a legitimate civilian purpose. The fact that the same equipment could be used for fighting never occurred to Vrel. Why would it? These were cargo ships. After Vrel left, Lisa found Kevin in the observation deck. That was close. Not really, Kevin said. We didn't lie about anything. Everything on this ship has a real civilian function. We're not breaking any laws, but we're bending them pretty hard, Lisa pointed out. Kevin shrugged. The council wanted to limit our military. They said we couldn't build warships. So we're not building warships. We're building cargo haulers and mining ships and processing stations. If those things happen to be useful in a fight, well, that's just good engineering. The industrial expansion continued. More shipyards opened. More mining operations started. More processing stations were built. Humanity was spreading throughout its solar system and beyond, and every new installation added to their hidden strength. Captain Amy Richardson commanded one of the new cargo ships, the SS New Horizon. She had been a military officer during the Kryn War, but now she wore civilian clothes and carried trade goods between human colonies and alien worlds. Her first officer, Lieutenant Frank Morrison, was also a veteran. So was most of her crew. They looked like civilian merchants, but they still trained like soldiers. They ran combat drills in secret, disguised as emergency procedures. They practiced firing the mass drivers at targets, calling it cargo delivery practice. Amy's ship made regular runs to alien space stations. She delivered human-manufactured goods and picked up exotic materials. The aliens saw her as just another merchant captain. They never suspected that her ship could fight. One day, Amy docked at a Therian trade station. The security chief, a six-eyed alien named Zan, came aboard for inspection. Standard procedure, Zan explained. We inspect all ships carrying valuable cargo. Of course, Amy said. My manifest is completely accurate. Feel free to check everything. Zan walked through the cargo bay, scanning containers with a handheld device. Everything matched the official records. Manufactured goods from Earth, electronics, processed foods, medical supplies, all legal trade items. What Zan couldn't see was the hidden communication system built into the normal ship's transmitter. Are the military-grade sensors disguised as navigation equipment? or the fact that the cargo containers themselves could be modified to carry other things if necessary. "Your ship is approved," Zan said, though the alien seemed troubled. "But I notice many human ships now, very many, all moving with great coordination." Amy smiled. "Human commerce is expanding. We're good at business." After Zan left, Frank joined Amy on the bridge. That was uncomfortable. "They're starting to notice," Amy agreed. "But noticing isn't the same as understanding. They see merchant ships. That's all they're looking for." Back in the Sol system, the coordination was becoming more sophisticated. Commander Helen Price had been promoted to admiral. She now ran what was officially called the Merchant Fleet Coordination Office. The office was in Geneva, in a building that looked like a normal business headquarters. But inside, it was a military command center. Holographic displays showed the positions of thousands of human ships spread across multiple star systems. Each ship reported its location, cargo, and status regularly. "Current status?" Helen asked during the morning briefing. Coordinator Jake Stevens pulled up the latest data. "We have ships in 17 major sectors of space. If we needed to respond to an emergency anywhere in Council space, average response time is now 8 hours. Every ship carries the standard industrial package. The industrial package had become code for a specific set of equipment: mining lasers that could double as weapons, mass drivers that could launch cargo or projectiles, manufacturing equipment that could make spare parts or combat drones, fusion reactors powerful enough to run all these systems at once. And the Council still thinks we're just merchants?" Helen asked. "They see what they expect to see," Jake replied. "Cargo ships doing cargo ship things. They don't understand that we're building a network, a fleet that doesn't look like a fleet." At the same time, other developments were happening in secret. The Civilian Defense Research Institute was supposedly focused on protecting colonies from asteroids and natural disasters. Director Greg Palmer ran the facility from a location on the dark side of the moon. "The kinetic interceptor test was successful," announced lead scientist Monica Lee. She showed Greg a video of a small missile streaking through space and hitting a target asteroid. The impact shattered the rock into tiny pieces. "Good," Greg said. "And the official purpose?" "Asteroid defense," Monica explained. "If a dangerous rock is heading toward a colony, we launch interceptors to break it up. Completely legitimate civilian safety equipment." "And the unofficial capability?" Monica pulled up technical specifications. "Each interceptor carries a 20-ton tungsten penetrator. Part 3 by year 5 after the treaty, humanity's merchant fleet had become impossible to ignore. Human cargo ships traveled everywhere in the galaxy. They carried goods between worlds, transported passengers, delivered supplies to remote colonies, and generally made themselves useful. The Galactic Council noticed, but didn't worry. After all, merchants were harmless. Civilians focused on profit, not power, or so the Council believed. Captain Amy Richardson sat in the command chair of the SS New Horizon, watching her navigation displays as the ship approached a busy trade station in Therian space. Her vessel was one of the newer models, 70,000 tons of cargo capacity with all the latest equipment. "Traffic control is hailing us," said her communications officer, Lieutenant Frank Morrison. Like most of Amy's crew, Frank was a veteran of the Kryn War. He wore civilian clothes now, but he still moved like a soldier. "Put them through," Amy said. A Therian voice came through the speakers. "SS New Horizon, you are cleared for docking Bay 7. Prepare for standard inspection upon arrival." "Acknowledged," Amy replied. She kept her voice friendly and professional. "Just another merchant captain doing business." The New Horizon slid into the docking bay with practiced ease. Amy had done this hundreds of times. The inspections were routine now, though they seemed to be getting more thorough lately. Therian Security Chief Zan came aboard within minutes of docking. The six-eyed alien carried a scanning device and looked even more suspicious than usual. "Captain Richardson," Zan said formally, "I must inspect your cargo and systems." "Of course," Amy said with a smile. "Everything is in order. Our manifest is complete and accurate." Zan spent an hour going through the cargo holds, containers of manufactured electronics from Earth, agricultural products from the Mars colonies, refined metals from the asteroid belt processing stations, medical supplies, consumer goods. Everything matched the official manifest perfectly, but Zan seemed troubled. "Captain, I notice your communication systems are very sophisticated for a merchant vessel." Amy shrugged. We operate across multiple systems. Good communications are essential for coordinating deliveries and staying in touch with our company headquarters. And these sensor arrays? Navigation and safety, Amy explained. Space is dangerous. We need to detect debris, map safe routes, and avoid hazards. Better sensors mean safer travel. Everything Amy said was completely true. The fact that the same communication systems could coordinate fleet movements, and the same sensors could track warships and identify targets, was information she didn't volunteer. Zan finished the inspection and approved the new horizon for departure. But as Amy watched the alien leave, she noticed how Zan kept looking back at her ship with those 6 eyes blinking in a worried pattern. They're getting suspicious, Frank said quietly after Zan was gone. Let them be suspicious, Amy replied. Suspicion isn't evidence. We're not breaking any laws. The Therians weren't the only ones noticing patterns. In the Galactic Council chambers, representatives from various species were having uncomfortable conversations. The Valkyrie ambassador, a new one since the last had died during a pirate raid, addressed the assembly. Human merchant vessels are now present in every major sector of space. They move with unusual coordination. They communicate on encrypted channels. Their ships are heavily built and carry sophisticated equipment. A Drachnor representative, a reptilian creature with green scales, hissed agreement. Their cargo ships are larger than some of our warships. They have powerful reactors, thick armor, and advanced sensors. Why does a merchant need such capabilities? The Therian delegate speaking through a translator added another concern. We have monitored their movements. Human ships often travel in groups. They conduct coordinated operations across vast distances. This is not normal merchant behavior. But they are not breaking the treaty, another voice pointed out. We have inspected their vessels repeatedly. They carry no military weapons. They operate no warships. All their activities are civilian in nature. The Valkyrie ambassador's crystal body shimmered with frustration. The letter of the law versus the spirit of the law. Humanity is exploiting every loophole we left them. Then perhaps we should revise the treaty, the Drachnor suggested. On what grounds? The Therian asked. They have violated nothing. If we restrict civilian shipping and industry, we must restrict it for all species, including ourselves. Such restrictions would damage galactic commerce. The Council had created a trap for themselves. They had banned humanity from building a military, but they couldn't ban civilian industry without harming everyone. And humanity was using that gap to build something the Council didn't fully understand yet. Back in the Sol system, the coordination was reaching new levels of sophistication. Admiral Helen Price stood in the Fleet Command Center, though officially it was still called the Merchant Fleet Coordination Office. The walls were covered with holographic displays showing ship positions, trade routes, and supply networks. Monthly status report, Helen requested from her staff. Coordinator Jake Stevens stepped forward with the latest data. We now have 3,200 heavy cargo vessels operating in Council space. Average tonnage is 60,000 tons per ship. Each vessel carries the standard industrial package, and all crews have completed advanced training. Advanced training meant combat drills disguised as emergency procedures. Every crew knew how to use their mining lasers for defense. Every captain understood how to coordinate with other ships. Every engineer could modify their equipment for different purposes. Response capabilities? Helen asked. We can position significant forces anywhere in Council space within 6 to 8 hours, Jake reported. The ships naturally spread out for trade purposes, but they can concentrate quickly when needed. The Council sees normal merchant traffic patterns. They don't realize it's a deployment grid. Helen studied the displays with satisfaction. Humanity had created something unique in galactic history. A civilian fleet that could function as a military one. Merchant ships that were also warships in disguise. All of it perfectly legal. Any problems with inspections? She asked. None, Jake confirmed. The inspectors find exactly what we show them. Industrial equipment serving civilian purposes. They see the mass drivers as cargo launchers. They see the mining lasers as cutting tools. They see armor as radiation protection. They never think about alternate uses. Meanwhile, at the Civilian Defense Research Institute on Luna, new innovations continued. Director Greg Palmer walked through the testing facility with lead scientist Monica. Lee, show me the latest developments, Greg said. Monica led him to a large chamber where technicians were working on small cylindrical objects. We've improved the kinetic interceptors. The new design can be launched from standard cargo handling equipment. Officially, they're still asteroid defense systems, and unofficially, each interceptor now carries 30 tons of tungsten penetrator material. We've increased the acceleration capability to 20% of light speed. The impact force is equivalent to a small nuclear weapon. Greg examined one of the interceptors closely. It looked like nothing more than a cargo pod with a rocket motor attached. How many can each ship carry now? 50 per heavy cargo vessel, Monica said. They're stored in standard cargo containers. From the outside, they look like emergency equipment or mining supplies. An inspector wouldn't know the difference. Perfect, Greg said. What else? Monica walked him to another section of the facility. We've developed autonomous mining drones. Officially, they're for working in dangerous areas where humans can't safely operate. Each drone has powerful cutting lasers and can operate independently for weeks. Let me guess, Greg said. They can also attack targets if programmed to do so. The software has multiple modes, Monica admitted with a slight smile. Mining mode is the default, but there are other modes available if needed. A cargo ship could release hundreds of these drones. They could perform mining operations or they could do other things. Every month brought new innovations. Every system became more capable. And all of it remained completely within the treaty guidelines because it was all civilian technology with legitimate peaceful purposes. Captain Amy Richardson made another run to alien space, this time to a trade hub in Valkyrie territory. She was carrying a shipment of human computers and receiving payment in rare crystals that the Valkyrie produced. During the cargo transfer, she met with other human merchant captains. There were 5 ships docked at the station, all human-operated. To casual observers, it was just merchants doing business, but in a private room at the station's commercial center, the captains had a different kind of meeting. Fleet coordination is improving, said Captain Ryan Cooper of the SS Star Trader. We ran a practice drill last week. 16 ships coordinated a simulated emergency response. We assembled in formation within 4 hours. Did the station operators notice? Amy asked. They thought we were organizing a joint cargo convoy for efficiency, Ryan replied, which we were officially. The fact that we were also practicing fleet maneuvers was our business. Captain Sarah Bennett of the SS Morning Light added her report. I've been mapping the sector. My sensors have logged every station, every orbital facility, every major ship movement for the past 3 months, all part of my navigation duties, of course. Part 4, Year 7. After the treaty began with terrible news from the edges of known space, the Kryn horde had returned. Admiral Helen Price received the first reports at Fleet Command in Geneva. She read the intelligence data with growing concern, then called an emergency meeting of all senior coordinators. The Kryn have been rebuilding in the dark regions beyond Council space, she told the assembled officers. Our long-range merchant scouts detected their fleet 3 days ago. 6,000 warships, maybe more. They're heading toward the Outer Rim colonies. Coordinator Jake Stevens pulled up tactical displays. The Council's military forces are still weak from the last war. The Valkyrie have maybe 300 functional warships. The Therians have 500. The other species together might field another 1,000 ships. They're outnumbered 6 to 1. What about us? Asked another coordinator. We have no warships, Helen said flatly. According to the treaty, we have small patrol craft in the Sol system and nothing else. Officially, we cannot help. Unofficially? Jake prompted. Helen smiled grimly. Unofficially, we have 3,200 heavy cargo vessels, 800 mining ships, and several hundred other civilian craft scattered across the galaxy, all equipped with industrial tools that might prove useful. The news got worse over the next few days. The Kryn fleet smashed through the Outer Rim defenses like they weren't there. The Valkyrie sent their remaining warships to intercept and lost 2/3 of them in the first battle. Crystalline ships, beautiful and elegant, shattered under the Kryn bombardment. The Therian fleet lasted longer but couldn't stop the invasion. The Kryn had learned from their last defeat. Their ships were bigger, their weapons stronger, their tactics better. They were destroying everything in their path. On the 5th day of the invasion, a desperate message arrived at Earth. The Galactic Council was requesting military assistance from humanity. The same council that had banned humanity from having a military was now begging for help. Fleet Admiral Lucas Bennett came out of retirement for the emergency. He met with Admiral Helen Price and the other senior commanders in the war room deep under Geneva. The Council is offering to suspend the treaty restrictions if we'll deploy our patrol craft to help them. Helen, reported. Lucas snorted. Our patrol craft would last maybe 15 minutes against a Kryn battle fleet. They know that. This is desperation talking. So what do we tell them? Asked Admiral Frank Morrison. We tell them the truth, Lucas said calmly. We have no military fleet to send. The treaty we signed prevents it. However, our civilian merchant fleet operates freely throughout the galaxy, and those ships might choose to take action to protect trade routes and commercial interests. Helen understood immediately. We're not deploying military forces because we don't have any. But our civilian ships can defend themselves and their cargo. Exactly, Lucas confirmed. He activated the main display, showing the positions of human ships across known space. Activate Protocol Maelstrom. All civilian vessels are authorized to defend themselves and others, using any available equipment. Coordinate response as needed for mutual protection. The orders went out through encrypted commercial channels. To anyone monitoring, it looked like normal business communications. Warnings about dangerous conditions, recommendations for convoy formations, suggestions for defensive precautions, all perfectly normal for merchants operating in a war zone. But the captains receiving those messages understood the real meaning. They were being authorized to fight. Captain Amy Richardson received her orders aboard the SS New Horizon. She was in Sector 7, relatively close to where the Kryn fleet would arrive in about 12 hours. All ships, she transmitted on the civilian coordination channel. This is New Horizon. Recommend convoy formation for mutual protection. Suggest we pool our defensive resources. Within 6 hours, 300 human cargo ships had assembled at the designated coordinates. From the outside, it looked like frightened merchants gathering together for safety. The Kryn fleet detected them and adjusted course to intercept. War Leader Thask commanded the Kryn advance force. He studied the sensor readings with amusement. Cargo ships. The humans send cargo ships against us? His tactical officer was equally dismissive. Perhaps they are attempting to flee together. Or maybe they plan to surrender. It doesn't matter, Thask decided. Destroy them. Show the galaxy what happens to those who oppose the Kryn. The Kryn warships closed to what they considered attack range, about 50,000 kilometers. Their weapons were optimized for that distance. But they had made a terrible mistake. The human ships opened fire first. Mass driver tubes, designed for launching cargo containers across solar systems, began firing tungsten penetrators at 10 rounds per second per ship. Each ship had 12 tubes. 300 ships meant 36,000 projectiles per second pouring into space at 3% of light speed. The Kryn shields were designed to stop energy weapons and missiles. They did nothing against solid slugs of metal traveling at relativistic speeds. The penetrators punched through the shields like they weren't there and kept going through the hull armor. Thask's flagship shuddered as penetrators tore through it. What is happening? He shouted. Those are cargo ships. His sensors officer tried to make sense of the data. They're firing some kind of kinetic projectiles. Thousands of them. Our shields are ineffective. Then the mining lasers joined the fight. Industrial cutting tools, powerful enough to slice asteroids into manageable pieces, focused their beams on the Kryn warships. Each human ship had multiple laser arrays. 300 ships meant thousands of laser beams, all cutting into Kryn vessels simultaneously. The Kryn armor was tough, designed to resist plasma weapons and particle beams. But it couldn't handle the sustained cutting power of industrial lasers designed to work through solid rock. The beams carved into hulls, slicing through critical systems, venting atmosphere into space. Then the kinetic interceptors launched. Thousands of small missiles, each one officially classified as asteroid defense equipment, streaked toward the Kryn fleet. They accelerated to 20% of light speed before impacting their targets. A Kryn battleship, massive and powerful, took 3 interceptor hits in rapid succession. The tungsten penetrators, each traveling at a fifth of light speed, hit with the force of nuclear weapons. The battleship's armor crumpled. Its hull buckled. Secondary explosions tore through its interior. Within seconds, the mighty warship was a tumbling wreck. War Leader Thask's tactical display had become a nightmare of red warning symbols. His fleet of 300 ships was being torn apart by cargo vessels. It made no sense. It violated everything he knew about warfare. Fall back, he ordered. Retreat to safe distance. But there was no safe distance. The human ships pursued, their mass drivers reaching out across hundreds of thousands of kilometers. Their lasers could focus and fire at distances no Kryn weapon could match. The interceptors hunted down fleeing ships and destroyed them one by one. Dask died not understanding what had killed him. His last thought was confusion about how civilian ships could fight like this. His flagship broke apart under sustained mass driver fire, and the war leader's confusion died with him. The battle lasted 23 minutes. Of the 300 Kryn ships that had attacked, 17 survived to limp away into deep space. The human merchant fleet had lost 5 ships and suffered damage to 20 others. Captain Amy Richardson sat in her command chair, breathing heavily. Around her, the crew was checking systems and reporting status. The New Horizon had taken several hits, but the thick cargo ship armor had held. "All ships report status," she transmitted. The responses came in quickly. Most ships were intact. The 5 losses had been ships that took concentrated fire before the Kryn formation broke. It was a victory, but people had died. "Captain," Frank said quietly, "we're receiving transmissions from the Galactic Council. They're demanding to know what happened here." "Tell them the truth," Amy said. "We're civilian merchants who defended ourselves against unprovoked attack using available equipment. We broke no laws and violated no treaty restrictions." News of the battle spread quickly. The Kryn main fleet learned that their advance force had been destroyed by cargo ships. They didn't believe it at first. Then the sensor recordings arrived, showing civilian vessels firing industrial equipment with devastating effect. The Kryn Command Council held an emergency meeting. They had never encountered anything like this. The concept of civilian ships fighting like warships was outside their understanding of warfare. Meanwhile, more human merchant ships were moving into position. Captains across the galaxy had received their orders and were responding. Cargo convoys became battle formations. Mining operations turned into tactical deployments. Processing stations activated defensive systems. The Galactic Council watched in amazement as humanity's true strength revealed itself. Thousands of ships, all civilian, all legal, all capable of fighting. An industrial empire that could wage war without having a single warship. Admiral Helen Price coordinated the response from Geneva. Holographic displays showed human ships gathering at strategic points across multiple sectors. The merchant fleet that had seemed so harmless was transforming into a military force the size of which the galaxy had never seen. Part 5, the war against the Kryn horde, lasted 3 months, but the outcome was decided in the first week. Admiral Helen Price coordinated operations from Fleet Command in Geneva. The walls of the command center displayed tactical information from across a dozen sectors. Each display showed human merchant ships engaging Kryn forces, and each battle followed the same pattern. The Kryn expected to fight warships. Instead, they faced cargo haulers that fought like nothing they had ever encountered. Sector 4 reports engagement complete, Coordinator Jake Stevens announced. Mining fleet from the Jupiter operations caught the Kryn's second wave at the nebula. Enemy lost 400 ships. Our forces suffered minimal damage. The mining fleet? Helen asked with a slight smile. 17 heavy mining vessels and 43 support craft, Jake confirmed. They were officially conducting mineral surveys when the Kryn attacked. The mining ships defended themselves using industrial equipment. Helen nodded. The pattern was repeating everywhere. Human civilian ships going about their normal business just happened to be present wherever the Kryn appeared. And those civilian ships just happened to have very effective defensive capabilities. Captain Amy Richardson's SS New Horizon had been in 4 major battles now. Her crew had become experts at what they jokingly called aggressive commerce protection. They had learned that mining drones, designed for autonomous asteroid processing, could be programmed to attack enemy ships with their cutting lasers and explosive charges. "Deploy the mining swarm," Amy ordered during their latest engagement. The New Horizon's cargo bay opened, releasing 200 small drones. Each drone was officially classified as industrial equipment, designed to fly to asteroids, cut them into pieces, and extract valuable minerals. But the drones could also identify targets, coordinate attacks, and use their cutting equipment against ship hulls instead of rocks. The Kryn destroyer that had been pursuing the New Horizon suddenly found itself surrounded by a cloud of small, fast-moving objects. The drones attacked from all directions, their lasers cutting into the destroyer's hull. Small explosive charges, normally used for breaking apart tough rock, detonated against critical systems. Within minutes, the destroyer was crippled. The New Horizon's mass drivers finished it off with a spread of tungsten penetrators, That's the third ship today, Lieutenant Frank Morrison reported. We're running low on drone inventory. We'll resupply at the processing station in Sector 9, Amy said. It's only 6 hours away at current speed. The processing station she mentioned was officially a civilian ore refinery, but it also manufactured replacement drones, stored kinetic interceptors, and could repair damaged ships. Like everything humanity had built, it served multiple purposes. The Kryn were learning that fighting humanity meant fighting an entire industrial infrastructure. Destroying one ship accomplished nothing because there were thousands more. Attacking a station was pointless because it was built as tough as a fortress. And there was no way to cut off supplies because the humans manufactured everything they needed in hundreds of locations across the galaxy. The Kryn War Master, Supreme Commander of the Horde, studied the battle reports with growing despair. His species had conquered dozens of worlds. They had destroyed entire civilizations, but they had never fought an enemy like this. We have lost 2,000 ships, his intelligence officer reported. The humans have lost less than 300 of their vessels. They are cargo ships, the War Master roared. How can cargo ships defeat our battle fleet? Nobody had a good answer. The Kryn doctrine of warfare had no response to an enemy that blurred the line between civilian and military. Every human ship was a potential warship. Every civilian station was a potential fortress. Every industrial tool was a potential weapon. The humans are requesting negotiations, the communications officer announced. The War Master wanted to refuse. The Kryn did not negotiate with prey, but his fleet was being systematically destroyed by merchants and miners. Pride would not bring back his ships or his warriors. Agree to talks, he said bitterly, but we negotiate with Earth directly, not with the Council. That decision shocked the Galactic Council. The Kryn were bypassing them entirely and treating humanity as the dominant power, which after 3 months of watching human merchant ships tear apart the supposedly unstoppable Kryn fleet, made a certain amount of sense. The peace talks took place on a neutral station in deep space. The Kryn sent their War Master and his senior commanders. Humanity sent Fleet Admiral Lucas Bennett, Admiral Helen Price, and several civilian representatives, including Director Patricia Cole. The War Master looked at Lucas with his multiple eyes. You violated the spirit of your treaty with the Council. You built a military fleet while pretending it was civilian. Lucas shook his head calmly. We built exactly what the treaty allowed. Civilian vessels for civilian purposes. The fact that our industrial equipment proved useful for self-defense is not a violation of anything, and you turned cargo ships into warships, the War Master insisted. We built tough cargo ships because space is dangerous, Lucas replied. We equipped them with powerful tools because civilian operations require powerful tools. We trained our crews well because good training saves lives. None of that violates the treaty. Patricia Cole added her perspective. Every system on our ships has a real civilian function. The mass drivers launch cargo. The lasers cut rock and repair hulls. The armor protects against radiation and debris. The fact that these same systems can be used defensively is just good engineering. The War Master realized he was arguing with people who had found every loophole in a badly written treaty and exploited those loopholes perfectly. Humanity had been restricted from building a military, so they had built a civilization where everything could function as military equipment while remaining technically civilian. What are your terms for peace? The War Master asked. The negotiations took 2 days. The Kryn agreed to withdraw from all Council space and return to their home territories. They agreed to pay reparations for the damage they had caused, and they agreed to recognize human merchant ships as protected vessels that would not be attacked under any circumstances. In exchange, humanity agreed not to pursue the retreating Kryn fleet and to resume normal trade relations after a suitable period. The Galactic Council, not even present at the negotiations, had to accept the terms. They had been saved by the very species they had tried to restrict, and everyone knew it. When Lucas returned to Earth, crowds gathered to celebrate. But the celebration had a strange quality. The heroes returning home commanded cargo ships and mining vessels. Not a single warship participated in the victory parade, because humanity still didn't have any warships. Captain Amy Richardson brought the SS New Horizon back to the Tyson yards for repairs and refit. Engineer Kevin Phillips met her at the docking bay. Your ship took a beating, Kevin observed, looking at the scorched hull and makeshift repairs. She held together, Amy said with pride. That cargo ship armor is tougher than military-grade plating on the old warships. Because we built her to survive anything space could throw at her, Kevin replied. Meteor impacts, radiation storms, solar flares. The fact that she can also survive combat was just a bonus. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session a week after the peace treaty was signed. The Valkyrie ambassador, looking frustrated, addressed Admiral Lucas Bennett via holographic link. "You exploited every loophole in the treaty," she said. "You violated the spirit of our agreement even while following the letter of the law." "We followed the law exactly," Lucas replied without apology. "You banned warships." "We built no warships. You restricted military operations." "We conducted no military operations. Our civilian fleet defended itself against aggression, which is the right of any beings under galactic law." The Therian representative spoke up. "You turned industrial equipment into weapons. You turned merchant ships into a battle fleet. You found ways around every restriction we imposed. We adapted," Lucas said simply. "You tried to limit our ability to defend ourselves. We found another way, a legal way, a way that kept us within every rule you set while still maintaining our security." A smaller alien delegate, representing one of the minor species, asked the question everyone was thinking. "What happens now? The treaty remains in force, but it clearly doesn't restrict you the way we intended." Lucas leaned back in his chair. "The treaty stays as written. We will continue to build no warships. We will continue to operate no military fleet. We will continue to focus on civilian commerce and industry. But your civilian fleet is more powerful than most military forces," the Valkyrie pointed out. "That's not our problem," Lucas said. "You wanted to restrict our military. You said nothing about our industrial capacity, our civilian shipping, or our economic development. We simply built a strong civilian sector that can take care of itself." The Council had no good response. They had created a treaty that banned warships but allowed everything else. Humanity had taken everything else and turned it into a force the galaxy had never seen. Admiral Helen Price attended a dinner in Geneva, celebrating the victory. Officers from the merchant fleet, mining operations, and processing stations gathered together. They wore civilian clothes, not military uniforms. Part 6. 5 years after the Kryn defeat, the galaxy had adjusted to a new reality. Human merchant ships moved through space with complete confidence. Nobody threatened them. Nobody dared. The memory of what happened to the Kryn was still fresh in everyone's minds. Captain Amy Richardson sat in her quarters aboard the SS New Horizon, now on her 100th trade mission since the war. She was writing her log entry for the day, something she did more for personal reflection than official record-keeping. "We stopped at the Valkyrie Trade Hub today," she wrote. 5 years ago, they inspected us with suspicion and barely concealed hostility. Today, the station master greeted us warmly and gave us priority docking. Funny how respect changes when people understand what you're capable of. Her ship had changed too over the years. The New Horizon had been upgraded with newer equipment, better reactors, more efficient mass drivers. But it was still officially a cargo vessel, still civilian, still legal under every treaty and regulation. Lieutenant Frank Morrison knocked on her door. "Captain, we have a situation developing in Sector 12. Pirate activity reported near the shipping lanes." Amy closed her log and stood up. "Just pirates? Not a military threat?" "Seems to be opportunistic raiders," Frank confirmed. "They're attacking smaller merchant vessels from other species. Local security forces are responding, but they're spread thin." "Change course to Sector 12, Amy ordered. "Send a message to other human ships in the area. Suggest we coordinate our routes for mutual security." Within 3 hours, 6 human cargo ships had altered course to pass through Sector 12. To anyone watching, it looked like merchants taking precautions. In reality, it was a small naval task force deploying to deal with a threat. The pirates detected the approaching human ships and made a fatal mistake. They assumed cargo vessels would be easy targets, rich with goods and weak in defense. They had not been paying attention to galactic news for the past 5 years. The pirate leader, a Draknor named Siskarl, commanded a small fleet of 12 modified freighters equipped with improvised weapons. He watched the human ships approach on his sensors. 6 targets, he hissed to his crew. "Fat merchants full of valuable cargo. We take them quickly before local security arrives." His ships moved to intercept. The human vessels didn't run or call for help. They simply stopped and waited, which should have warned Siskarl that something was wrong. This is SS New Horizon to approaching vessels. Amy transmitted calmly. You are entering a designated shipping lane. State your intentions. We intend to take your cargo, Scarl replied arrogantly. Surrender now and you won't be harmed, Amy sighed. You're making a mistake. I strongly recommend you change course and leave this area. You're in no position to make recommendations, Scarl said. Prepare to be boarded. Amy looked at Frank and shook her head. Some people never learn. Activate defensive systems. All ships, you are authorized to protect your cargo using available equipment. The human vessels opened their cargo bays. Mass driver tubes aligned on targets. Mining lasers powered up. The pirate fleet suddenly found themselves facing the same industrial equipment that had destroyed the Kryn horde. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted about 90 seconds. Mass drivers launched tungsten penetrators that tore through the poorly armored pirate ships like they were made of paper. Mining lasers cut two vessels completely in half. The survivors tried to flee, but kinetic interceptors caught them before they could escape. Scarl's ship was one of the few left intact, though heavily damaged and unable to move. Local security forces arrived to find the pirate fleet destroyed, and 6 human cargo ships calmly resuming their trade routes. What happened here? The security commander asked Amy over the communication channel. Pirates attempted to rob us, Amy replied matter-of-factly. We defended our cargo using standard industrial equipment. The situation has been resolved. We're continuing to our scheduled delivery at the Valkyrie hub. The security commander didn't know what to say. The human merchant had just destroyed a pirate fleet that had been terrorizing the sector for months, and she talked about it like reporting a minor maintenance issue. News of the incident spread quickly. Over the following months, pirate activity in sectors with human merchant presence dropped to almost zero. The pirates had learned what the Kryn learned. Don't attack human ships. The cargo isn't worth it. Back on Earth, the civilian economy was booming. The same industrial capacity that had won the war was now driving unprecedented growth. Shipyards were building new merchant vessels at a record pace. Mining operations were expanding into new asteroid fields. Processing stations were opening throughout human space and beyond. Director Patricia Cole stood in the new headquarters of the Civilian Shipwrights Guild, a massive complex on Luna that employed over 50,000 workers. She was meeting with younger engineers who would design the next generation of civilian vessels. Remember the principles we've established, she told them. Every ship must have a real civilian purpose. Cargo hauling, passenger transport, mining operations, construction support. These are not just covers. They're genuine functions that make our ships valuable to the galactic economy. A young engineer named Chris Carter raised his hand. But we also design them to be tough, right? Strong enough to defend themselves? We design them to survive, Patricia corrected. Space is dangerous. Meteor impacts, radiation, equipment failures. A ship that can't survive these hazards is a poorly designed ship. The fact that the same features make them combat capable is simply good engineering. Another engineer, Michelle Davis, asked the important question. What about weapons? The treaty still bans military-grade weapons. We don't install weapons, Patricia said firmly. We install tools. Mass drivers for cargo launching, lasers for cutting and welding, manufacturing equipment for repairs, defensive systems for asteroid protection. These are all legitimate civilian equipment. How that equipment gets used in an emergency is up to the captain. The philosophy had become standard across all human industry. Build civilian equipment that could serve multiple purposes. Design ships and stations to survive anything. Train crews to handle any situation. Never call it military. Never classify it as weapons. But make sure it all worked when needed. Admiral Helen Price had officially retired from her position at Fleet Command, though like Lucas Bennett before her, she remained as a civilian consultant. She spent her time now teaching at the Merchant Marine Academy on Mars, training the next generation of civilian captains. The line between merchant and warrior has always been thin in human history, she told her students. Ancient Earth had merchant vessels that could fight, privateers, armed merchantmen, trading companies with their own fleets. We're just continuing that tradition on a galactic scale. A student named Peter Grant asked, But doesn't the Council object to what we're doing? The Council can't object, Helen explained. We're not violating any laws. We're not breaking any treaties. We're simply running a very robust civilian shipping industry. If our civilian ships happen to be tougher than most species' warships, that's not illegal. It's just good business. What about other species? Another student asked. Are they copying our approach? Helen smiled. Some are trying. The Valkyrie have started building heavier merchant vessels. The Therians are upgrading their mining equipment, but they're approaching it as imitation, not innovation. They're trying to copy what we built without understanding why we built it. She pulled up a holographic display showing various ship designs. They see the mass drivers and the armor plating. They don't see the philosophy behind it. We didn't just build tough ships. We built a civilization that refuses to be helpless. Every human in space, from cargo hauler to mining engineer, understands that they might need to defend themselves. That mindset is what makes us different. The Galactic Council had tried several times to revise the treaty, to close the loopholes that humanity had exploited, but every attempt failed because any restriction on civilian industry would hurt all species equally. If they banned powerful civilian reactors, their own merchant fleets would suffer. If they restricted industrial equipment, mining operations across the galaxy would slow down. The Valkyrie ambassador, now an older and wiser being than the one who had first imposed the treaty, met with Lucas Bennett at a diplomatic reception on Earth. You won, she said simply, speaking through her translator. We tried to limit you, and instead we made you stronger. Lucas sipped his drink and looked out at the night sky above Geneva. You made us think creatively. You forced us to find a better way. A better way to build a military while pretending it's civilian, the ambassador said. A better way to build a civilization that can defend itself, Lucas corrected. There's a difference. A military fleet costs enormous amounts of money and produces nothing except security. Our merchant fleet makes a profit while also providing security. Our mining ships produce valuable resources while also serving as defensive platforms. Our entire industrial base contributes to the economy and defense simultaneously. The Valkyrie ambassador's crystal body shimmered thoughtfully. You've created something unique. A civilization where economic strength and military strength are the same thing. We created what we needed to survive, said. You gave us restrictions. We turned those restrictions